Welcome everybody to Wisestake.com MMA DFS podcast. I'm your host Jeff, aka Wigspitter, aka Wiggy Wiggleson. You can find me on Twitter at JEFPO. If you're not already a Wisestake.com subscriber, head on over to Wisestake.com. You can pick up a MMA event pass for only $4.99. You will gain access to the cheat sheet that I come up with, details the GPP cash plays that I have, as well as the full fight-by-fight breakdown article for the premium members, as well as a 24-hour day, 7-day chat room that we go over strategy in, and gain access to the live stream the day of the event, since this fight is in Hamburg, Germany. It's on a Sunday and it's early in the morning. So we'll probably have the live stream the day before, which will be Saturday. With that being said, let's jump right into it. This is UFC Fight Night 134. Mauricio Shogun Hua going up against Anthony Lionheart Smith. The first fighter on the card is Damon Stasiak versus Pyongyang Liu. Both these guys are, let's see, their salaries are, boom, boom, boom. Damon Stasiak's salary is $8,200. He's a minus 105 favorite. Pyongyang Liu is $8,000 salary. He's a minus 115 favorite as well. Basically a pick'em by Vegas. Stasiak has 1 win by knockout, 7 wins by submission, 1 loss by knockout. Pyongyang Liu is 4 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, 1 loss by knockout, and 3 losses by submission. Now, with that being said, both these guys have solid grappling. Stasiak, I think, will have the advantage on the mats. That's probably where he's going to want to take it. Pyongyang Liu is probably going to have the advantage striking. If he could keep the fight standing, he probably might have the advantage there. This is his debut fight, so it could be a tough one. I'm leaning Stasiak for the win by submission, possibly second round. It could be a tough fight for Pyongyang Liu in his debut, going up against a guy like Stasiak. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have Jeremy Grizzly Kimball going up against Darko Stosic. Kimball's salary is $6,900. He has 11 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He has 1 loss by knockout and 6 losses by submission. Stosic is $9,300 salary. He has 7 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He has 1 loss by knockout. He's a minus 275 favorite. Kimball's salary is $6,900 and he's a plus 235 underdog. Kimball he's a tough guy. I think a lot of people are going to be overlooking him and then just looking at Stosic because of the Vegas odds. But I think Kimball is definitely, if you look at him, he looks like the guy that's shagging grocery carts at the local grocery store. Very unassuming, but he has insane knockout power. And it's possible that could have a grappling heavy base where he's going to want to take down Stosic and then work for a ground and pound style knockout, or stoppage, I should say. I think Kimball's going to have the advantage there. And if you look at it from a GPP tournament perspective, definitely Kimball is worth a GPP flyer. At $6,900, it gives you a huge leeway when you're building your lineups. But this is first look, so I'm going to have to look more into the fight video. But I'm leaning more Kimball. He's fought more recently, and Stosic is making his debut. So I'm leaning a little more towards Kimball in this fight. Now, moving on to the next fight is Davy Grant versus Manny Bermudez. This is going to be a great fight, I think. I think Davy Grant's going to have to take this fight and keep it standing because both these guys are grappling wizards, but I think Bermudez is on another level when it comes to submissions. Davy Grant's salary is $7,000. He has 1 win by knockout, 8 by submission. He also has 3 submission losses. He's a plus 205 underdog. Bermuda's salary is 9,200. He has 1 win by knockout, 8 by submission as well, and he's a minus 245 favorite. If David Grant can't keep this fight standing and test out Bermuda's striking, this could be a short night for Grant, because I think once Bermudez is able to get into that clinch and maybe drag him down, it's basically his world down there on the mat, and it's gonna be a short night. I like Bermudez to win the fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Justin Ledetz going up against Alexander Rakic. Ledetz's salary is 8,300. He has 2 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He's a minus 125 favorite. Rakic's salary is 7,900. He has 7 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He also has 1 submission loss in his career, and he's a 105 underdog. Now, Ledetz is he reminds me of like those Russian heavyweight brothers, where basically they just literally stick their jab in your face nonstop, and it's not like he's just doing it like a tapping type jab. He has decent power behind it, and you got to think of as you accumulate strikes. It's not like you have to keep punching hard. It's just if you keep punching with power, you're eventually going to wear your opponent out. Now, he does have a 2-inch reach advantage over Rakic. Rakic is a power striker. I think if he can figure out a way to get inside Ledetz's jab and make him pay for it, maybe working the body, maybe kicks to the body, maybe chopping the leg out, maybe incorporating some leg strikes in. It's going to be a long night for Ledetz, but I think that jab of Ledetz is just I think it's going to be a little too much for Rakic, and I think he's probably going to pull off a decision victory. For a DFS standpoint, I don't like decisions unless it's a high volume striker, and he's only shown that he has a high volume of strikes in one of his fights in the UFC. He, in his last split decision win, he only scored 36 significant strikes. In the victory, he only scored 48 points, fantasy points, which is horrible. He did have a submission win over Mark Godbeer where he scored 100. And then the fight with Chase Sherman, where he had over 100 significant strikes, he scored 100 points in his decision. So it's one of those things where if it's going to be a high volume striking affair, he definitely will score over. He might make value at 85 to 100 points, but exceeding his value, he would need a stoppage. I don't necessarily. I think Ledetz's going to pull off the decision victory, but Rakic does have the power, and he has shown that he can stop people. But it's just going to be interesting to see if he could get inside that jab, which is ridiculous. It's very frustrating to watch because he just doesn't seem to do anything other than just jab. But he does have submission. He does have submission upside as well, so it's possible. But moving on to the next fight, we have Khalid Taha from Germany going up against Nadna Rahmani from England. Taha is a brawler type fighter. He throws a lot of power shots. Narimani's more of a technical striker. Narimani's salary is 9,100. He has 2 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He's a minus 270 favorite. Taha salary is 7,100. He has 7 wins by knockout and 3 by submission. He also has 1 submission loss in his career. He's a plus 230 underdog. Narimani, both these guys are making their UFC debuts, so it could be a snooze fest or it could be extremely exciting. I think Taha is going to want to come in and he's going to want to impress. He's going to probably push the pressure because that's the type of fighter he is. He's a very aggressive, come forward fighter. And at 7,100, I mean, he's definitely worth a flyer. I mean, a GPP flyer. I mean, he has KO upside. Narimani isn't necessarily his last loss was a decision loss back in 2014, and then his other loss was a split decision loss back in 2013. So it's not like he gets finished. He fights to a decision majority of the time. So from a DFS standpoint, I definitely could see taking the flyer on Taha if you feel that he has a probability of finishing or maybe getting that power shot on Narimani and being able to either stun him and then get him down, possibly pound him out for a TKO stoppage. But I think I would lean more Taha when it comes to for a GPP. I don't think I want to roster Narimani for a decision. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have Emil Valhalla Mech going up against Bartosz the Butcher Fabinski. Mech is coming off of he's coming off of a loss to Kamaru Usman, who just completely dominated him on the mat. He was taken down multiple times and just broken. I mean, he only scored 30 significant strikes in that fight. Before that, he had a decision loss over Maine, and he only scored 69 points in that. He's 1-1 in the UFC, going up against a guy like Bartosz Fabinski, who is a very aggressive, come forward, like grappler. Like he literally just takes guys down. Against Gareth McClellan, he took him down, I believe, 10 times. He scored multiple advances. I like Fabinski as the underdog here. He definitely has the GPP upside, especially because he's going to basically land multiple takedowns and then get the advances as well. Because once he goes for the takedown, he literally will just try to go from full mount to side control to full mount. So there's going to be a lot of advances out there. Meek has shown that he can defend the takedown somewhat, and I'm not trying to say Fabinski's grappling is on the same level as Usman's, but he's very tenacious. He's gritty, and he doesn't give up. When he sets his sights on the takedown, he literally he'll come in, throw a couple strikes, and then get into the clinch and then just drag his opponent down for a takedown. He does tend to sort of lay and pray, and then that's what gets the ref to stand him up, which is awesome because from a DFS standpoint, guess what? Then he could land another takedown. So I like Fabinski at 7,800. Probably safe for GPPs and cash. Meek at 8,400. If you feel that he's going to probably get the that home run, knockout, walk-off flash KO at 8,400, I mean, I'm not going to hate you for it, but I'm leaning more Fabinski in this fight. Now moving on to the next fight, we have Nick Hein from Germany going up against Damir Hadzovic from Bosnia. Nick Hein is probably going to come into this fight with a grappling heavy fight plan. Try to stay away from Hadzovic's striking. Hadzovic is more of a brawler, power striker, and Nick Hein is more of a technical striker. He has a lot more. It's a lot more refined striking as opposed to Hadzovic's power striking. I like Nick Hein in this fight. Nick Hein's salary is 8,500. He has 1 win by knockout, 4 by submission, 1 loss by knockout, and 1 loss by submission. He's a -170 favorites Hadzovic's salary is 7,700. He has 6 wins by knockout, 3 by submission. He has 1 loss by knockout, and he's a 150 underdog. I think Nick Hines probably going to want to put on a show for his home country, and possibly work for a decision victory. But I mean, if you want to go safe for cash, if you're building a safe cash lineup, I mean, you definitely could throw Nick Hine in there. But for GPPs, I don't see it. I don't see the upside there. But he definitely is probably going to pull off the win, possibly by decision. Moving on to the next fight, we have Nasrat Haqparast going up against Mark the Bone Crusher Diakese. To me, Diakese has not looked the same ever since that Dan Hooker loss. Haqparast is he's a pretty solid fighter. Excuse me. He's currently 0-1. He has 1 loss in the UFC right now. It was a decision loss against Marcin Held, who's not in the UFC anymore. He signed with ACB. I personally think he won that fight, but it could have at least been a split decision as opposed to a unanimous decision. But Marcin Held is a fairly solid all-around fighter. He's more of a lay and pray grappler. Haqparast didn't look too bad in that fight. And then he's going up against Mark Diakese, who is currently on a 2-fight losing streak, where he lost a split decision to Drakkar Klose, and then he had that submission loss against Dan Hooker. So it's going to be interesting to see how he turns it around, because when he came into the UFC, he came in. Everybody was sort of thinking that this guy's going to be the next big thing, and he reeled off 3 straight wins against lower level opponents, and then he ran into Drakkar Klose and lost by split decision, and then he looked fairly okay against Dan Hooker until that guillotine got slapped on him, and he went to sleep, or tapped out. I'm sorry, but I think Haqparast is definitely worth a GPP flyer, just because Mark Diakese is sort of inconsistent. He's sort of, I mean, this could be one of those fights where, maybe they're feeding Haqparast to him, but I don't think it's a feeder fight. Haqparast is not a jobber by any stance, but Diakese's salary is 8,900. He has 6 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He has 1 submission loss to his record. He's a minus 170 favorite. Haqparast's salary is 7,300. He has 8 wins by knockout and 1 loss by submission. He's a 150 underdog. From a DFS standpoint, I think Haqparast is definitely GPP viable, but I think this fight is probably going to go to a decision, and it could be a split decision. And Diakese has shown that he's not necessarily the most active striker, especially in his losses. I mean, sometimes he just looks horrible. So, I mean, his striking isn't necessarily high. So I think this is probably going to be not a very interesting fight. But if I was going to pick anybody, I'd go with the underdog. It's probably a dog or pass fight. So moving on to the next fight, I like Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts going up against David Saget Zawada, who's stepping in for injured Alan Jouban. Zawada is a hometown guy. He's fighting from Germany. I mean, home country guy, so he's Germany. Roberts is from England. Roberts is one of those guys, man, where he's same thing. He's sort of flaky. You don't really know which Roberts is going to be in there. Danny Roberts' salary is 9,400. He's got 7 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He has 2 knockout losses on his career and 1 submission loss. David Zawada, his salary is 6,800. He has 11 wins by knockout, 3 by submission. He has 1 loss by knockout and 1 loss by submission as well. At 6,800, I definitely would be willing to take a flyer on Zawada, just because Roberts has shown that he can get knocked out, and when he loses, he gets knocked out in a very, very impressive way. I mean, he makes guys look amazing. Like, he made Nordine Taleb look like an elite striker, which Talib isn't. He's no slouch. He when he lost to Mike Perry with that knee, and then followed up with a whole bunch of punches. Man, I mean, it was a wicked loss. But against guys like Oliver Enkamp and Bobby Nash, he won. He won by TKO and KO. So it depends on which Danny Roberts is going to show up. I think David Zawada is going to be a formidable opponent. But if you look at it from the standpoint, if he's fighting higher guys that have more talent than him, the Mike Perrys, the Nordine Talebs, he loses. When he fights guys that are either at his level or below, like Bobby Nash and Oliver Enkamp, then he wins. So it's going to be a coin toss. I think this fight is a coin toss, in my opinion. And I don't see Danny Roberts. I mean, at 9,400, he's a minus 380 favorite, and Zawada is a 315 underdog at 6,800. I mean, it's a dog or pass for me, I think, and I think I'd rather use the dog. That's a couple underdogs that I've picked already, but from a DFS standpoint, you got to either do the boom or bust thing. And with it being in Germany, he might want to show out in front of his home country. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have Marcin Tybura going up against Steven Struve. Steven Struve is another one of those inconsistent fighters. He's 6'11", has a huge reach advantage every time he goes into the fight, and he doesn't use it. I mean, if he just used his reach advantage, fought from distance, he'd probably have at least 6 or 7 more wins on his career. But Tybura is a gritty, all-around fighter. He's well-rounded. He's got good takedowns. He has solid striking. He has decent power. Going up against Struve. So Steven Struve's salary for DraftKings is 7,200. He has 8 wins by knockout, 17 by submission. He has 7 losses by knockout, and he has 1 loss by submission. He's a plus 200 underdog. Tybura's salary is 9,000. He has 7 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. He has 2 losses by knockout, and he's a minus 240 favorite. Now, if Steven Struve was to come in with the correct game plan and fight from distance and use his strengths, which is his reach and his height advantage, then he probably could grind Tybura out. But I think Tybura is probably going to push the pressure onto Struve. He's probably going to push him up against the cage, grind him up against the cage, and use he's going to bully him basically and just work for takedowns and maybe do like a lay and pray type like he did against Orlovsky, where he went for the takedown, landed the takedown, and just smothered Orlovsky for 3 rounds. If that happens, at 9,000, I don't see Tybura paying off his salary. At 9,000, he would have to get either a submission or maybe a knockout or a TKO stoppage due to strikes. Struve has shown that his chin is questionable. I mean, once that button is popped, it definitely is easier to open. At 7,200, he does have GPP flyer upside. But I think Tybura is a tough enough dude to where he's gonna make it hard for Struve to win. But Struve can hit him with one of those tree trunks of a leg, as Tybura is coming in for a takedown and possibly get the stoppage there. So I mean, I think this is one of those fights where you could probably pick either side, especially from a DraftKings standpoint. I think I'd lean more towards Struve than I would be Tybura, but I think Tybura is probably going to come in with a good game plan and grind Struve out and work for a decision victory. Now, moving on to the next fight, we have Vitor Miranda versus Abu Azaitar. I haven't looked into this fight too much. It's not something that I was really excited about. Azaitar is from Germany. Miranda's from Brazil. Azaitar's salary is 8,800. He has 7 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He has 1 knockout loss to his record, and he's a minus 190 favorite. Miranda's salary is 7,400. He has 9 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and he has 1 submission loss. I'm not too familiar with Azaitar. The salaries just came out this morning, and I was trying to find fight video on him. So I'm not even going to really comment on this because I don't really know too much about Azaitar. I'm gonna look more into it today, but so I'm gonna pass on any type of theory on it. But I mean, if you want to just side with Vegas, you can just go Azaitar because he's a minus 190 favorite. But I mean, I'd have to look more into it to see if he's more of a grappler or whatever. But moving on to the next fight, the co-main event, we have Glover Teixeira going up against Corey Anderson. Glover Teixeira has sort of transformed his fight game. In his last fight, he used a grappling heavy base against Mirsha Serkinov. Like he literally started the fight out slightly, with a little bit of a strike, couple strikes here and there, kicking the legs, and then he went in for a takedown, shot for the takedown, took him down, had a couple advances, and then just pounded Serkinov out for the first round KO victory. He looked really good. And then his fight before that against Gustafsson, Gustafsson just used his length and just picked Glover apart. I mean, his head movement was horrible in that fight. So if Corey Anderson was smart and he comes in with the same game plan as Gustafsson did, and which is basically fight from the outside, it's sort of a double-edged sword because Glover Teixeira still has power in those hands and he can knock anybody out. And Corey Anderson has shown that he's been knocked out before. So Glover Teixeira's salary is 8,600. He has 17 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. He has 3 knockout losses, and he's a minus 165 favorite. Corey Anderson's salary is 7,600. He has 4 wins by knockout, and he has 3 losses by KO. And he's a plus 145 underdog. So, taking that into context, if Corey Anderson decides to keep this fight on the feet and not use his grappling, I don't think he wants to. I mean, he definitely could smother Glover Teixeira because he's going to be the bigger guy. But he will put himself in a dangerous predicament because Glover Teixeira is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he has 6 submission wins to his credit. Corey Anderson has never been submitted, but there's always a first time for anything. But he has been knocked out 3 times. So if he's smart, he's going to want to probably have a grappling-heavy fight plan, possibly grind Teixeira out, wear that gas tank out, and then possibly work for a decision or maybe even a late round stoppage just from wearing him out. But I think Glover Teixeira is going to be too smart for that, and I think he's possibly going to pull off the victory. I like Glover Teixeira at 8,600. Corey Anderson definitely has the GPP upside because he does have takedowns, plus upside for takedowns, and he does have the length advantage. So if he does keep it standing and he employs the same fight plan as Gustafsson and just strike from the outside, he could pick apart Teixeira. But I'm not sure if Corey Anderson's striking is on that kind of level. He has shown improvements, but I'm not saying he's that kind of fighter at all. But if he comes in with that kind of fight plan, he could have the advantage there. But I do like Teixeira to win the fight. Now moving on to the main event, we have Mauricio Shogun Hua going up against Anthony Lionheart Smith. Now, Shogun and Anthony Smith is like, it's a pretty good main event. Like, this has fireworks written all over it. Shogun is coming off a knockout or TKO win over Gian Vellante, which he looked fairly good against. He had a split decision win over Corey Anderson, and he had a unanimous decision win over Antonio Rogero Nogueira before that. Now Anthony Smith, on the other hand, is he's coming off of a brutal KO victory over Rashad Evans, and then he was coming off of a body kick loss against Thiago Santos, and then before that he had 3 KO wins over Hector Lombard, Andrew Sanchez, and Elvis Mutovic. From a DraftKings standpoint, I like both fighters. I mean, this is one of those ones where you have to build your line. You might have to hedge your lineup, build the lineup around each fighter. At 7,500, Hua definitely has the power and the experience to take out Smith. Smith has the power to take out Hua. So this is going to be a fireworks show, man. Hua has salary 7,500. He has 20 wins by knockout. He has 1 win by submission. He has 4 losses by knockout, and he has 3 losses by submission. He's a plus 200 underdog. Anthony Smith's salary is 8,700. He has 15 wins by knockout, 11 by submission. He has 7 losses by knockout and 5 by submission, and he's a minus 240 favorite. This fight is, I don't think it's going to last very long. Maybe the second or third round, and then one of these guys is either going to go to sleep, or they're going to get the ref's going to stop it due to the accumulation of strikes. But I think this is going to be a great fight. I think it's one of the ones you're probably going to have both sides of. But that's my first look. UFC Fight Night 134, Hamburg, Germany. Shogun versus Smith. First look preview for DraftKings. If you want the full in-depth breakdown, I will have my article out Saturday. I'll have the premium article out Saturday. The live stream will be Saturday. And I'll be in the premium chat off and on throughout the week. Shoot me a message on Twitter at JEFPO. If you're not already a Wise Take subscriber, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're listening to us on Podbeans or iTunes, make sure you leave us those 5-star reviews. It really helps us out. It helps us climb those charts, and gives us a little extra motivation to try to do better for the next time we do these podcasts for you. But I appreciate you taking the time out. Like I said, a premium MMA event pass for wisetake.com is only $4.99. You'll gain access to all the premium content. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen to me talk about MMA and DFS. As always, have fun and make that money.
Yes.